You're welcome back. Now, you can always stay interactive with us by tweeting at Joy Business GH is the handle. And on Facebook, we are on Joy Business. For more business news, don't hesitate to log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Now to our very first story. News about some critical accounts of government being frozen have come across as shocking for the business community and even some state officials. The Consolidated Fund and Treasury single accounts are the said accounts that have been frozen. But is government really not having access to these accounts? George Uafe will tell us more. We will bring you that story in a jiffy, but let's move on. And presidential candidate of the Progressive People's Party, Dr. Piracy, has criticized the tax system in the country, sharing his views at the first of two IEA debates yesterday. Dr. Indum said Ghana has adopted a lazy approach to taxation, which he says has become counterproductive.
Occasion to say very clearly that what we are practicing is a lazy man's approach to taxation. And so what government does is energy. Everybody needs power. Everybody needs petrol. And so they pile on the taxes there because we can't live without them. Okay, that the few people who pay tax, so they squeeze us some more. And then people give up, and the tax, the amount of tax goes down. So my point is that if we get away from the lazy man's approach to taxation, what we will then end up doing is to do the right kinds of things. Specifically, I have talked earlier on about the implementation of the National Identification System, which comes with a unique numbering scheme, which then, if you apply it, then it means you go and buy a house, you go and sell a house, you go and rent a house, you do all of those kinds of things. Well, it's recorded and we know you earn income, and therefore you pay tax. And if we are able to do all of those things, then I believe that we can, within 4 years, reduce the level of taxation for those who are paying tax now by at least 50% in this country. Because we would have expanded the numbers of people who are coming in, would have increased productivity, and therefore we would be able to raise more money by applying the funds that come from the people who are now producing. And we talk about infrastructure. Look, infrastructure, we are spending on infrastructure that is not related to productivity. And that is one important matter we need to address. And so when you go to those areas, for example, in the Western region, where cocoa is being grown, where gold is being produced, where bauxite and all those kinds of things are being produced, they have terrible, horrible roads. You go to Sampa, you go to Tuabodom, you go to the places in the Brongahafu where they are growing cashew and so on and so forth, the roads are terrible. So we need to increase the level of infrastructure that leads to productivity. That is what will help us eventually to reduce this tax burden that is there. And you know what happens in Ghana? When somebody sees you that you are being successful, the first thing that, if they don't like you, they come to you is, are you paying tax? They don't ask you, how can we help you to produce more? They come to punish you. And so we need to make sure that we change that attitude. And for me, by changing that attitude, more people will encourage to produce more, will collect more tax from more people, and therefore the rate will go down.
On his part, independent presidential candidate Jacob Osei Yeboah admonished local companies to rope in more of the informal sector to help boost taxes in the country.
Every country needs taxes in order to develop. But the most important thing is as to how to optimize that taxation. Now, in Ghana, our major problem is the fact that we have only a few of us in the formal sectors who are being taxed. And that is why we have that high level of tax burden on them, which is not actually helping. One of the means, just as I've indicated, is the establishment of the National Electronic Data Infrastructure. I had a discussion with TUC last week, and I told them that it's good for them to also expand their union to bring in the informal sector. Because in most of the African countries, we have the three sectors of our economy. That is the formal sector, that is where we have the informal sector and the traditional sector. Now, if we are able to expand our tax bracket to bring in the informal sector and the traditional sectors, that is where we have about 80% of the ordinary Ghanaian there. If we're able to expand that, then we'll be in a position to build upon that. Now, we're talking about infrastructure. It's good, we need to develop that. If we are creating wealth from our own economy, we'll be able to do that. It's not about an issue of just establishing or creating infrastructure for its sake. In businesses, we have what we call return on assets. And so we need to really find out whether that infrastructure that the government wants to embark on, is it not politically motivated? For you to build huge schools in certain places that we don't even have students to occupy them, it's not productive enough. Meanwhile, if we have used that same amount to have upgraded a technical school somewhere, it could have served the nation better, and for us, we can actually have the products coming out to serve all of us. And so what we need, yes, infrastructure we need, but we need to do analysis on the return of its access to the country before we embark on. If we did that, then as a nation, we'll have the key to our development.
The PNC presidential candidate, Dr. Edward Mahama, however, believes the problem has to do with dealing with corruption.
Corruption is part of the problem. I will tell you this. In 1973, when I was a doctor in Alergu, Champong tried to bring a national identification system. They paid monies to contractors, they chopped the money. Later, another government tried, they chopped the money. Between Mills and Kufuor, monies were chopped. So basically, until we are able to have an identification system for people, I mentioned earlier real estate taxes, for example. You can't collect them because there are no addresses, you know. And when people go and borrow money, they can easily change their abode. You can't trace them. So banks are, not interested in lending money. We can do simple things that will put the system in place.
All right, so those were some presidential candidates sharing their thoughts on taxation at the first in two of series of IEA presidential debates. Away from that, Microsoft Ghana says the incidence of copyright piracy in the country has hit alarming proportions. In an interview with Joy Business, country manager for Microsoft Ghana, Derek Appiah, said the company is moving to clamp down on copyright piracy as the issue of pirated software affects the lives of many individuals and organizations, exposing them to some hazards. This was at an interactive cyber security awareness program held in Accra.
Microsoft, in collaboration with the National Communications Authority, Ministry of Communications and National Security Secretariat, with support from the U.S. government, is hosting a week-long awareness drive on cybersecurity. According to the country manager of Microsoft Ghana, Derek Appiah, this has become imperative with the alarming growth in copyright piracy in the country.
The new trends is previously kind of the issue around malware, cybercrime, etc. were generally small individuals who wanted to kind of have some sort of an impact. What we found since about 2003, 2004 is that increasingly it becomes a kind of a business model. The criminals have actually got involved in terms of because basically they get it's free profits, they have a business model. And finally lately, we found that even nation states are kind of getting involved in kind of in cybercrime.
A major contributory factor to the issue of copyright piracy is because it is quite expensive for people to secure documents and other software systems. But according to Consumer Group Director of Microsoft, Kailash Bana, The company is exploring more flexible payment terms.
So payments is certainly an issue, yes. And the way we're bridging the gap from a payments perspective is we're starting to work with the telcos. In fact, from an Africa perspective, all up, we're starting to work with the telco organizations, where we now have a payment scheme on a monthly basis, especially around some of our applications such as Office, where you can pay a monthly subscription versus an annual or a once-off subscription. So they should be starting within the next 2 or 3 months. We are under discussions right now with some of the telcos. As soon as we finalize them, we'll be able to kind of phase them out into the broader public.
The Cybersecurity Awareness Week began Monday, 21st November and runs through to Friday, 25th November 2016.
Now, the Petroleum Commission has expressed satisfaction with the impact made so far by international oil companies in host communities of the country. The sector has, since the commencement of production in 2011, contributed over $3 billion to the economy. But there have been concerns by industry watchers that the activities of oil firms have adversely affected the livelihoods of residents, businesses, and especially the fishing community. Now, however, speaking to Joy Business, Chief Executive Officer of the Petroleum Commission, Theophilus Ehring, said enormous progress has been made in ensuring that such communities do not unduly bear the brunt of oil production.
I'm pleased to say that a lot has happened in that area. In terms of engaging the communities, we do that pretty well. Once every year, we have a forum led by the Minister for Petroleum that have sessions with the Western Regional House of Chiefs. We also have sessions with the district assemblies for what we call the frontline districts. We also have sessions with the fishing community for them to understand that there's a new entrance in the offshore area. And it was important for them to realize that we can harmoniously coexist and one is not a threat to the other. And I think these campaigns are going pretty well. You would also see from the CSR, the corporate social responsibility of the service companies and IOCs, that they are providing a lot of amenities to the local people. Some of them have provided boreholes in the communities. Some of them have assisted in developing chip compounds. One of the companies has actually embarked on a scholarship program which they do annually, among others. So there is a lot of progress in terms of the provision of these amenities in the area.
The newly sworn-in president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Patricia Sappor, says she will be looking at how banks can focus on electronic services to aid their growth. Patricia Sappor disclosed this to Joy Business after the swearing-in ceremony in Accra.
Research indicates the introduction of digital and electronic services in all aspects of the economy could engender a significant impact on all forms of businesses, including the banking sector. To this end, the newly elected president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana, Patricia Sappor, is optimistic having a strong digital platform will be of great help for the banking industry. She said it has become crucial to focus on technology due to the current trends of customer needs in the financial sector. She tells Joy Business electronic services have the potential to turn around the fortunes of banks in the country.
My predecessors have done, bringing the institute to this level. And also I want to develop and train digital savvy banking professionals. The whole banking services are changing to digital channels of banking. So we just want to churn out the digital savvy banking professionals, and then also want to support and collaborate with the central bank.
On the recent influx of microfinance institutions in the country, she hinted of collaborating with the central bank to help in regulating the sector.
We want to support and collaborate with the central bank to support the microfinance institutions in the area of training, and then also work with the Bankers Association and all stakeholders to support the government, in developing the banking sector in Ghana.
What actually will be the topmost agenda on in your programs?
Well, the topmost agenda is to develop banking professionals, churn out banking professionals who are abreast with the current needs of the banking, is to churn out digital savvy banking professionals with the highest level of integrity to support the banking sector. You know, banking is changing and the whole banking terrain is moving into digital banking. So we are going to align to be able to meet the needs and expectations of customers.
Patricia Sapport takes over for the next 2 years as president of the Institute from Jude Metzel, who served for a 2-year term as president of the Institute.
This is the Marketplace. Let's take a breather here. We'll be back with more stories. Thank you very much for staying and welcome back. Now, news about some critical accounts of government being frozen have come across as shocking for the business community and even some state officials. The Consolidated Fund and Treasury single accounts are the said accounts that have been frozen. But is government really not having access to these accounts? George Riafi tells us more.
The decision to freeze the accounts by an Accra Commercial Court follows government's refusal to pay some funds owed non-bank financial institution NDK. The debts came from a guarantee government extended to a haulage company, Haman Enterprise, to undertake some rural electrification project. Sources say the debt has now reached over 300 million Ghana cedis. Apart from the Consolidated Fund and the Treasury single accounts, Joy Business understands accounts of the Attorney General's Department and the Energy Ministry have also been frozen. For some, there's still a level of doubt as to whether the October 4 court ruling to freeze these accounts have really been carried out. But let me fill you in on how critical these accounts are. For instance, the Treasury single account can be described as the operational account for government, where all government cash are deposited, as well as the necessary expenditure are made. It includes or have other sub-accounts like debt servicing, goods and services account, compensation account, an account that is dedicated to paying projects carried out by contractors. The Consolidated Fund also receives all revenue based on projections in the budget. So you can imagine what will happen to government if indeed all these accounts have been frozen. But if what a Minister of State told me is anything to go by, that is because of this freeze, is not able to fuel his official vehicle operations, then it might be true. But again, why is government tight-lipped about this serious development? Could it be that a separate account has been created where fresh revenue are being directed to?
That was a Business Desk report by George Riafe. Now, away from that, according to a study conducted in 2014, almost half of food crops produced in farming areas in Ghana do not make it to the final consumer. Joy News Justice Bedu has been to the Brahafo regional town of Amankwa Krom, a farming community, to find out why and what means for such farming communities.
This is the road that leads to Amankwa Krom. It's a small farming town of about 500 people in the Techima North district of the Brongahafo region. This 5-kilometer stretch is one of many things standing between farmers here and the market. 70-year-old Joyce Farr is one of those farmers. Her 5-acre cassava farm was ready for harvest months ago. She's unable to harvest because no car can come here to convey them.
The
road is deplorable. Look at me. I'm old and weak. We can't do anything about the road. It's government's responsibility. During the dry season, cars use the road. But when it rains, no car can come here. We can't harvest. And when you do, you lose everything.
Huge amounts of food like this heap of cassava here continues to go waste in many parts of Ghana. And yet, this is a country where nearly 1.6 million people are at risk of hunger and malnutrition. And in many cases, like it is here in Amankwa Krom, it's usually because there's no way to move this from the farm gates to the market where they are most needed. And this is one of the places where cassava from villages like Amankwa Krom are needed. A gari processing factory just miles away, employing close to 200 women. But work here is slowing to a halt because they just can't get cassava supply.
We can't get cassava due to bad weather. And when it rains and we get good harvest, the cars can't convey them here because of the roads. This factory employs many people, but it is almost empty now. We can do more with a good supply.
The tragedy of post-harvest losses in Ghana is not just with the food that is wasted, but also with the economic opportunities on the agricultural value chain that this country would never realize. Justice Peidu, Joy News, Amankwa Krom in the Bronga-Ahafo region.
Let's now give you a taste of what's going to happen this evening on the Joy Business Van.
Since the beginning of the 20th century, pallets have served as a convenient and affordable cog in the universal machine of transportation. The pallet industry is not in any way a sleeping business. Pallet manufacturing dates as far back as World War II. At first glance, the flat wooden structures sitting outside grocery stores may not seem like much at all, but there's more to what meets the eye with the simple shipping containers.
Since I started, I decided, you know what, whatever is in my head, because even though I've been researching a lot already, even though I've done a small combo like this, I want the world to hear about me. I want Ghana to hear about me.
All right, so we'll get a full story on Business Live tonight at 5 p.m. And that's it for Marketplace this afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Abuachi. Let's meet again tomorrow for more interesting developments in the world of business. Good afternoon.